Welcome back on the AM show, and from here we continue with talk about the Ghana cedi, which keeps appreciating against the dollar. But ironically, this hasn't impacted inflation, which has moved from 40.4% in the previous month, that is October, and now in November we're looking at 50.3%. In September, it hadn't hit 40%. So we're asking, what are the triggers? What in fact can explain all of this? And what is going to be the impact of the high inflationary rate on your pocket, on my pocket, on our economy generally? Is this an indicator that it's going to be a real struggle returning to single-digit inflation? We discuss these inflationary trends and more with Professor Gachi, who is Dean of the UCC School of Business. Prof, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. What is your initial reaction? About 18 months back to back, inflation has been experiencing an uptick. It's been going up. And here we are again. The expectations were that as Christmas approached, we would see a reduction in inflation. For me, for example, I'm just waiting to see what December will bring. If it keeps going up, I would make my assessment. But what is your assessment? 18 times running, inflation keeps going up.
I think if you can pose your question rightly.
Saying inflation has been going up for about 18 months. It's not showing any signs of slowing down. For you, what is your assessment as we look at inflation for November at 50.3%?
Well, I think we saw what have been driving inflation from the SASCA service. Sometimes it is fuel, sometimes it is another thing. And the very one that they have just released, they're talking about housing, water, electricity. These are the things that have driven inflation. And if you look at it's just changing hands from electricity, from fuel, from transport, fueling inflation along the line. And for November is very high, and people are expecting that depreciation or appreciation of the currency should influence November inflation, but that is not the case. The appreciation we are experiencing is only in December, and that could not affect November inflation. I can say that November inflation is actually past inflation, and therefore the factors that happen in November should account for the inflation for November.
Right. So looking at the breakdown, you would see that cost rose the most in the category of housing, water, gas, electricity, with prices up by 79.1%. Then furnishings and household equipment ranking second at 65.7%. Followed by transport. Interestingly, transport has slipped to third place this time at 63.1%, and then food inflation was at 47.9%. But even before we get to the breakdown, I'd like to find out from you, if you look at 40.4 to 50.3, that is like 9.9 percentage points. Previously, it was low. The differences were about 2-3 percentage points, but this time we're looking at almost 10. Is there something going on there? Is there something economically speaking that we should be looking at? Or was it just the dollar price and its impact on our economy?
Well, it is not easy to explain that it is the dollar price. It depends on the weight of the drivers of the inflation. If the weight is high, that will impact more on the inflation. And right. If the weight is not so much, it will not weigh much on the inflation. So I look at it from the weight point of view.
the weights point of view. Now, looking at the breakdown compared to the previous months that we have seen, what do you see from here? Transportation is still one of the key ones, ranking third this time. And of course, that includes fuel at 63.1%. Of course, fuel prices have dropped by a bit. Yesterday, I was looking at some petrol pumps and the price has dropped a bit. Do you think that should be able to impact November's, should have impacted November's inflationary rate, or should we expect that it will do so in December?
I think it's expected that it will trigger some impact in December, but again, it will depend on the weight of those items. If those items, the weights cumulatively are high, that would drive down inflation. But generally, one is not expecting that inflation will go down. Generally, the inflation will go up, but the magnitude of the increase may slow down because of the effect of depreciation, the effect of fuel prices, and I believe people are calling for transport fares to go down.
Yeah.
So if that one also happens in December, that is likely to have effect on the outcome of the survey for December. But to a large extent, we do not expect that inflation will go down, but the rate of increase will decelerate.
But that's exactly the point I'm making. The rate of increment should be decelerating. And actually, it's been decelerating for 1 or 2 months, because if you look at June, July, August, September figures, and then I think from September thereabouts, we were not seeing it shoot up by that much. And that is my concern here, because in this instance, 40.4 to 50.3, that's about a 10-point jump. It's just 0.1 shy of a 10-point jump, which is why I am concerned, because then it appears we've gone back to previous trends.
Well, I think what you are trying to say may be reasonable explained in December. The December, all the factors are playing. Fuel price is going up and promises to go down further. In fact, the new one that will be announcing on Friday, we were told that it will be significant reduction. And if that happens, then that will have impact. Again, you are talking about the appreciation of the currency. You could see that it is also very significant now, moving down from around 15 to around 10.7 cedis. That is also significant development.
Right.
And that will have some effect on the outcome.
I want us to look at the impact of inflation on salaries. But before we get there, you would also notice that transport had the highest month-on-month inflation in November at 12.8%. And compared to other months, you would see that trend also continues. You started asking me about the transport fares, which are set to go down, passing a comment on that, according to the transport minister. But in our interactions so far with the transport operators, they have said there is no sign of that, because there are so many factors apart from fuel prices that resulted in their fare increases. Looking at inflation as it stands now, is it only logical, with fuel prices falling, that in December, or at least in January, we should see transport fares, per the differences, begin to fall a bit?
I think normally the way the transport fares are determined is that if there is a fall in prices of oil or fuel, and that crosses a certain percentage mark, then when you cross that, then it should trigger a downward trend. So I don't know whether all the variables involved with this decrease in the fuel prices, that will fall within that band for which they will be reducing their fares. So I think we need to check that, to check whether they have gone past the band. If they have gone past the band, then I believe transport fares may go down. But if it doesn't, then it cannot go down. And for that matter, the reflection in December inflation will also be insignificant. And again, Guta is calling on the traders in the market to look at the appreciation of the currency to see if they can adjust their prices downward. Normally, if you are expecting that depreciation will take place at the time that you will be importing,
right,
then you will factor that in your pricing. And if you also expect that the currency will appreciate at the time that you will be importing,
right,
then you may be forced to scale down your prices. But again, we do know that most of the traders have already imported items at a higher exchange rate.
Exactly the point I was about to make.
They will be paying at a higher exchange rate. So it may not incentivize them to reduce the prices because of the cost that they incur importing the current items on the market. And if the trend continues and they are going to import new items, then that will trigger a downward reduction in prices of the items for the next window.
Right. So in essence, what you're saying, it feeds into what you were talking about earlier, that inflation likely would keep rising, especially as, and we've heard some of them from Guta and members of the TUC say that whatever we've brought in already, we were buying the dollar at 14 cedis, 15 cedis and the rest. Now the dollar has fallen, but we still got those goods at that high price. We must make our profit before subsequently we can reduce prices. That feeds into what you're saying.
Exactly so.
So for how long? I mean, do you think January, February, first quarter, definitely we should be able after the first quarter, right?
Exactly. And I believe the Bank of Ghana is also expecting that if we are to see a downward trend in inflation significantly, that will be close to the first quarter, the end of first quarter of next year.
Right. So if inflation is going to slow down to a large extent, we should expect that within the first quarter, at the end of the first quarter of next year.
Yes.
Do you think securing an IMF deal within that same period, and that's the window that we're hoping to operate in, the first quarter of 2023, would also affect inflationary rates?
Exactly so. Normally, when you engage in IMF deal, it targets depreciation, it targets inflationary development, and it targets interest rate. So if we sign on to an IMF deal by first quarter of next year, then we may see a drastic change in policy. We may see a drastic change in the way we do things, and perhaps that will start reflecting on inflation, and that will start reflecting on those key indicators.
Right. Before we get into other aspects of the conversation, I just want you to help us as we look at a few slides in respect of how much people earn, basically purchasing power, and how it has been eroded over time. We're going to look at September, October, and November. Now, if you look at that first slide, you would realize that inflation for the month of September, which came in October, stood at 37.2%. Now, if you're earning 3,000 Ghana cedis, 4,000 Ghana cedis, 5,000 cedis, or 10,000 cedis, this is how it works out. In September 2021, if your salary was 3,000 Ghana cedis, in September 2022, with a 37.2% inflation, your salary would actually be 1,884 Ghana cedis. You would still earn 3,000 cedis, but the real value you would get is 1,884 Ghana cedis, which would mean that the value you've lost out of your 3,000 cedis is 1,116 cedis. With that same logic, on that same premise, if you earned 4,000 Ghana cedis in 2021, your real salary, even as 4,000 came to you in 2022, the real value would be 2,512 cedis with over 1,400, in fact, almost 1,500 cedis lost. The same could be done for 5,000 cedis, where your salary would now have depreciated in value to 3,170, factoring in 37.2%, taking away or robbing you of 1,830 cedis. And finally, if you earned 10,000 cedis, your salary, that is in September 2021, in 2022, that same month, your salary would now be worth 6,280 cedis. The value lost 3,720. But that was the September situation. Let's look at October. Then from that figure, it jumped to 40.4% in October. That is inflation. So if you do the same analysis, in September 2021, if you were earning 3,000 Ghana cedis, in October 2021, then in October 2022, the real value of your salary with a depreciation of 40.4% would give you 1,788 cedis, which would mean you had lost around 1,200 cedis. For 4,000, you would now be getting, in real terms, what your purchasing power is, 2,384 with a loss of 1,600 cedis. And then for 5,000 cedis, you would now receive, in real value, 2,980 with over 2,000 cedis lost. Let's finally take a look at the current one, which is November. Now it's gone up even further, 50.3%, which means basically off the top of your head, you are losing half the value of what you get. So let's do the breakdown. If 3,000 cedis is what you were earning in November 2021, now in November 2022, it is only worth 1,491 cedis, less than 50%. And the value lost 1,509. For November 2021, if you earn 4,000 Ghana cedis, now it's the equivalent of 1,988. If you earn 5,000, it's now worth, in real terms, 2,485 with over 2,500 cedis lost. And if you made 10,000 Ghana cedis, the real value of your money is 4,970 cedis, which means that you've actually lost over 5,000 cedis, specifically 5,030 Ghana cedis. Prof, looking at these trends and what dent it could be making in the pocket of the ordinary Ghanaian, I know inflation, while this is the general inflation, for some people, inflation would be higher because of their buying preferences. For some, it would still be lower because of their purchasing preferences. But what does this mean generally to people? And I'd like you to add, I've heard some people say that things are going to be very hard in the first quarter of next year, and we should brace ourselves and spend little. How does that feed into this?
Well, it doesn't mean that the incomes of people are being eroded by inflation, and that creates difficulties for them. Some people have to work a little harder to add some other activities to it to earn extra income to survive. People have to revise their budgets downward to reflect the situation. And in fact, the data you provided, for some people, it may even be eroded faster than you put there, right? Because of the category of consumption they find themselves. Right. Some have cars, some don't have cars. So that will have a different effect on this group of consumers. So I think, and some of them have loans. It will have different effects on their income. So
just a pointer as you go on. So imagine someone is in let's say that even the 10,000 category, right? Imagine the person is in the 10,000 category, and the person is a salaried worker who also is on a bank facility. Okay, let's say about 3,000 Ghana cedis, and then you also look at
and mind you, some bank facility have
they've gone up. Yes,
have increased the rate for these people, and they claim that the facility they have given to them is a variable interest rate. So some of them 14.8%, exactly, increase it to about 27%, and that will have a different impression on the incomes of people.
Very true. So imagine, let's just do this. Imagine hypothetically this person is earning 10,000, which now the real value of which is 4,970 cedis. and the person was paying 2,000 on a facility every month. Let's say now,
Yes.
with all the increments, it's about 2,000 cedis. And this person drives a car. So let's say with fuel prices where they are, if you're driving a 1.6 liter, you're spending something close to 800 cedis. Now, by 4 weeks or 5 weeks, depending on how often you fuel your car, it means that this person already, with the bank facility taking its share and fuel alone, has nothing. In fact, this person will be in the negative before feeding, utilities, and everything else comes.
So what it means is that most households are actually running on deficit, and that is impairing their incomes. Some are borrowing from other sources to survive at the end of the month.
Right.
So that is a general difficulty that is bedevil household consumption now because of inflation.
So tell me, before I get to my other guests, let me just find out from you. Looking at the CD's appreciation, for you, there have been so many dynamics that have been pointed to: Cocoa syndicated loan, IMF staff level agreement, all shoring up the CD. And some have said that just a speculation, so to speak, worked against the CD. Now it is shoring up the CD. But others have also been quick to point out that all of this is artificial. We don't have the systems. Our economy is not strong. And so a few more shocks and we could end up in a bad place. What do you see when it comes to our CD's appreciation? And it's been pretty steep against the other currencies, especially as the Fed in the US is also lowering rates. What do you make of that, quickly?
Well, I don't see this to be a sustainable one. It provides some respite for us, for the economy. We wait to see how it will spread into the entire economic system. We know that the measures put in place by the Bank of Ghana and the Ministry of Finance have not yet started. They point out that they want to cut down importation of rice, we want to shore up production of poultry and other activities. That will be from 1st January 2023. The same thing applies to cutting down on or freezing of employment, etc. And I do not think that those are the major reason why the CD is performing. I do know that importations have been done already, so there is no much pressure on the CD. That will also be accounting for the appreciation. But we have no reason to explain how fast the appreciation is taking place in recent, especially within this week. I'm not sure we are able to explain why it is appreciation so fast.
Thank you so much, Prof, for joining the conversation and sharing your thoughts with us. I'm sure with time, we'll have ample opportunity to dig further into our inflationary rates and the CD. Thank you so much for joining. Let's now have Duncan Amoah, who is Executive Secretary of the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers, that is COPEC, join the conversation together with Samuel Amoah, who is with the GPRTU. Duncan, a very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, and good morning to your hard-working, back team. Good morning to Samuel, to my namesake.
Right. Samuel, a very good morning to you too. Samuel Amoah, if you can hear me, please unmute. Please unmute for me.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, Ben, good morning. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. It's been a while.
Good. Yes, Ben, I've been around.
Musika ba ya no mo nhwehwe me biom.
Ben, sikane dia mayo. Bronya yedini Sakura.
Bronya Sakura, we'll work it out. But let me start the conversation from the end of Duncan Amoah. Fuel prices have taken a bit of a tumble. The last I checked, I don't want to mention brands, but I saw quite a depreciation in the prices. For some of them, they would say that it is only for Christmas. So I've taken a look at some of them. But what is accounting for that? And especially with the major currencies in some sort of free fall against the Ghana cedi, what can we expect in that regard?
Well, Ben, I think it should be good news for those of us on this side, especially when you consider that 2 months ago, the city was behaving like what I would call lotto numbers. You wake up and it's 10 and it's 11 the following time, and it's 12 and it's gone 13. And, at some point, the BDCs even had to do their forward rate using 19 Ghana cedi, prediction sort of. And so if you had prices go up a month or two ago, and the excuse or justification was that, we've had the cedi depreciate, and that is why fuel prices are going up. Then when you wake up and hear the cedi is gaining on the dollar, it should be good news for your fuel prices to also decline. Per our projection in-house, we are expecting petrol to do between 12 and 13 Ghana cedi, no more, no less.
So petrol 12 and 13 Ghana cedis. For which period? For which period?
For the second window, December, which commences tomorrow, Friday the 16th. Again, we're also expecting diesel to trade between 15, maximum 16 Ghana cedi, no more, no less. LPG prices, we are also expecting to go down at least by some 12% a kilogram, effective tomorrow. The good spot, like you mentioned,
just a quick one. The 12% per kilogram in real quantitative terms, how much would that factor into?
If you're currently doing, almost 20 cedis, 21 for LPG, then you are hoping it could also decline to about 17.5159. Thereabout. So that would also see some rapid decline. Then you come to what the market is already giving all of us or throwing at us. I can, without holding on to too much protocol, confirm that Star Oil is clearly working way too hard to give Ghanaians, the kind of relief that we would expect.
Yeah, but I would try to avoid mentioning brands. That's why I didn't mention.
I am doing this, Benjamin,
right?
Specifically for the fact that they seem to respond to these numbers a lot quicker. So while other OMCs are waiting for 16 before they can reduce prices, Star Oil, as I speak to you, is doing 12.99, whereas the other major OMCs are all still above the 15.4, 41 for petrol, while diesel is selling around 18 for most of the major OMCs. You have one of them already decided to do about 15.7 for diesel. That's a drop of more than 2 Ghana cedis every liter. I don't know what they will do tomorrow, but if this is, a reaction to our expectation that prices would decline so that Ghanaians will have some relief, then we do think that as a brand, together with Zen, together with Frames Oil, there's something quite positive happening with them. We only mentioned them so the others don't go to sleep. If you recall, they did, double increases in some of the windows when the dollar was hectic, and they couldn't even put, a finger to what prices could be in the next window. There were windows that they increased from the 16th or the 1st of the month, and then within the month, they increased again because, the dollar was hectic. Now that the reverse is happening, Benjamin, we'll be happy to see them with same zeal, reduce or decline their prices at the pump so that the Ghanaian can get some relief. And it is on that I mentioned these brands, not to give them any promotional advantage. But I think the others should also come out quickly to ensure that when Benjamin closes from work today and he needs to get to the real-time numbers to be reflected in his pocket.
Right. Just hold for me. I have more pertinent questions for you, but let me come to Samuel Amwa. How do you respond? I mean, the dollar is falling, and the dollar is the major currency that we purchase all these items in, crude and all of that. And we also know that fuel prices themselves have gone down at the pump by about some 3 cedis or more, depending on what you purchase. What has that meant? What has that meant for you in your union, the GPLTU?
Thank you very much, Ben. Let me say good morning to your viewers. What is happening now is, yes, we have come to, we know or we have seen now that the fuel prices are coming down gradually. And where it went to about 23.49, it started coming down. If I would say it is now, I think Total is now selling diesel for, I think, 18 cedis, 99 pesos. I think Goil is also selling around 18 cedis, 65 or thereabout. That is for the diesel. Yes, when we had our negotiations with the government, when we were going for our transport fare review, I think the fuel price was around 15.99. That is when we had our increment. And per the agreement we had from May to the October that we increased. The fuel price was increased for about 5, 6 or thereabout times.
Right.
And now that it is coming down, we are, as a GPRT or transport operators, we are expecting that it should come down to where it was before we had our negotiation. That is 15.99.
Which is 15.99.
That is 15.99.
Right.
Yes. So when it gets to that point, we will also, go out there to check on other components. Like Ben was, like you are rightly saying, that the dollar is now, coming down. The cedi is now gaining its strength. If it's happening like that, it means the spare parts will also come down. Likewise, the lubricants. So when it comes to that situation where we find the diesel price come down to 15.99, we'll check on the other component to see the percentages that they have reduced. Then we also come up with a transport fare reduction. So yes.
But even before we go into any reductions, I have seen from some pumps, some brands with diesel going for around 16 cedis thereabouts. Are you saying your members don't patronize such places?
Yes. Ben, as you are rightly saying, we normally check on Goil, Total, and Shell. These are the 4 stations that we normally check before we do our transport fare reviews.
So those ones are your benchmark.
OMCs. Come again?
Those 3 are your benchmark. That's how you
that is our benchmark. Right. We know some of the OMCs are selling it, a little bit down than that of Shell and others. But it's not everywhere that if we say we want to use the smaller ones, I think we'll miss the mark because you can't get we can't get those filling stations everywhere. That is why we are using these 3 stations as our benchmark. So as I was saying, if the diesel price comes to the 15.99, we also check on the other components. Then we also check on the percentage that we have to reduce. So we are expecting, because we've also heard that the next pricing window is likely the fuel price will come down again. And that has been our expectation. If it comes down again to this mark, GPRTU, the leadership will also sit down, then we calculate the percentage that we have to reduce from our transport.
Is that to say, if it doesn't go down in the next pricing window, or if it doesn't come to the 15 cities 99 peswa mark, you are not going to change anything when it comes to your transport fares.
That is exactly, because even now that I'm speaking, the other components are still the same. When you go to the spare parts market, nothing has changed. Although maybe, I don't know whether from this morning before some changes will come. Likewise, lubricants and taxes, government taxes, BBLE taxes are still the same. Even insurance, by 1st January, insurance is also coming up with 30% increment. And those are the components we use for our transport fare review. So now that our mark was 15.99, that is when we had our negotiation, we did our increment. If we don't wait for the fuel price to come down to that level and we also come up with an increment, with a reduction, I think it will not go down well with us. It will not help our business. It will disturb our members.
So you think it's realistic to hold out like this? But let me ask you, in terms of the price decrement or transport fare decrement, at a point you weren't even meeting anymore with the tripartite committee, with government to sit down before you increase the prices. At a point you were calling for 60%, you were given 19%, which really rounded off to 20%. And then you increased it again in the days following that. Nowadays, it appears you increase it even without anyone's approval. You just look at the fuel prices and increase it. So now the fuel prices have fallen by that much. Why don't you do same? You don't need to engage anybody. Also decrease it.
You see, we had a call from the minister arranging for a meeting.
The transport minister.
Leadership. That's correct. We
Right.
are arranging for a meeting with our leadership. You see, we have not cancel this regulation, or if I may put it this way, the agreement that we had with the ministry. We are not canceling that. So these things comes in when we find out that the ministry is also failing in some certain areas. That is where we want to build, this relationship again, to make sure that, because when it happens like that, you find out that everybody out there will be doing his own things, and it doesn't, help the business, and likewise, it doesn't also help our clients. So that is why we now want to make sure that the ministry should set up that anytime there has to be a transport increment and we send a proposal, they should quickly respond so that the right thing, should be done. We don't want the situation whereby transport operators or drivers will be out there doing their own thing. Everybody will be charging his own fares and all that. We don't want that situation. If it happens like that, it creates a lot of confusion, chaos, and all that.
So two things.
So we
two things very quickly. You're basically saying you want the transport ministry and the minister, that is Kweku Ofori-Esiama, to be more proactive. But in another breath, it can also be deduced that if the drivers have got to the point where they can increase fares on their own, it means Mother Union, the GPRTU, you, the leadership, are failing.
Come again. You say the leadership are failing.
I am saying that on the one hand, you're saying the ministry, the minister, should be proactive so that when you put in petitions for transport fare increments, they can be dealt with quickly. But I'm also saying that if we get to the point where your drivers, and you are the largest union in Ghana, your drivers can arbitrarily, on their own, increase transport fares. We saw someone die, if you remember, on the back. In fact, one person, a woman, badly injured, her head, a gash. Another person died in a scuffle with a trotro mate or a conductor. So I'm saying, if we get to that point, is that not a failure for the GPRTU, your union, and you, the executives?
Yes, when it happens like that, you may put it that way. But then our union, we are controlling a lot of drivers, if I may put it that way. And let's not also forget that everybody is managing his own vehicle. The vehicles are not for GPRTU. It's a business that people are running. And we have a regulation that whenever there is going to be a transport fare increment, the leadership of GPRTU has to meet the transport ministry before some things of that nature has to be done. But if it happens like that, and the ministry are not helping, the ministry are not living up to the expectation, calling meetings and making sure that when the time is due for us to also increase our fares, they are not helping. it will also, sound like the leadership of GPRTU are also not helping its members. That is where the problem is coming from. So it happens like the ministry fails. Anytime the ministry fails, then the pressure will be on the leadership of GPRTU. And, you'll be seeing these kind of things that the drivers will start agitating, drivers will start to manage to do their own things to make sure that at the close of the day, they will also get their daily sales and maybe get something in their pocket to manage their homes. That is one thing we don't want. That is why I was saying that if the ministry now is saying that they cannot manage us, or maybe we have to be like a private operators, like we can also come out and arrange or decide on our transport fare review. Then if we come to understand that, we also make sure that anytime it gets to a point for us to increase or to reduce, we'll manage our members and we'll make sure that the right things will be done. But now that we all know that the ministry is the duty of the ministry to come up with this, and they are not doing that, that is what is bringing all these confusions. That is why I'm saying that this time around, the ministry has to set up to make sure that anytime the 10% threshold, it will get to that point, and we also have to increase our fares quickly. When we send our proposals, they have to respond quickly so that the drivers will not also be blaming the leadership of GPRT.
Right. My final bit to you for now, then I'll go to Duncan. And after that, I'll give you just about a minute each to wrap up. The minister, Kweku Ofori-Esiama, quote, says, "We have sat down with the transport operators. We need to go through some processes to make sure that the market survey we have just conducted justifies the decision we're going to take. We've gone through the processes. We are meeting again. That is today. That is, he said yesterday, but today. But I can assure the minority chief whip that the transport operators will do something about it." What you're telling me and what the minister says are at variance. The reason being that he says you will do something about it, but you're telling me you will only do something about it conditionally if the price falls to $15.99. That is for the GPRTU. So where is the meeting point between what you're saying and what the minister is saying? Because as of what you've told me, it means that you will not necessarily decrease it until you get to $15.99.
Yes, I believe there is a pressure on the minister because he is managing the transport sector, and then he is also trying his best to make sure that the transport fares will come down. That is why I believe he made that statement. And we also know that we
But is it a correct statement? From what you're telling me, it means this is not necessarily what is, right?
No, what I'm trying to say is that the minister knows very well that we have a margin, we have a mark that we normally use before we increase our fares or maybe reduce our fares. And the minister knows that it has not gotten to that point. So maybe he is thinking that, okay, fine, they are my people. Let me go and sit with them, try to talk to them, try to convince them, explain things to them, to sacrifice something. That is what I believe he's trying to, because mostly some of the times when we write proposals to him, asking for a transport fare increment, sometimes he do sit with us, sometimes he do negotiate, sometimes he do explain some things for us to understand that, oh, we should hold on, blah, 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 blah. So I think that is why he's also saying that he's trying to meet the leadership of the transport operators to talk to them, to see if they can do something about it. But I think it's not going to be a force or maybe something that he's going to say, yes, it has gotten to a point where you have to reduce your fare, because he knows very well that it has not gotten to where we are supposed to reduce our fares.
He knows it's not got to that point yet. That's the 10% mark.
Yes. No, you see, if we are mentioning 10%, let me explain this, Ben.
So very quickly on that.
Okay, the time we had our 20%, that is May to October, that we increased the 20%, but then the fuel price has been increased 42%. Meaning that, supposing we're supposed to increase our fares, we should have increased it by 4 times, until from the 15.99 to 23.49. I think it was also increased for about 46% or thereabout. So we didn't increase exactly by the 10% threshold. So if we are to reduce, then basically it will not come with a 10% because it exceeded before we did our increment. That is what I want you to understand.
My final bit to you, and then I think I can let go of you and deal with Duncan. So should we hit 15.99, right? When we hit 15 cedis and 99 pesos, by what percentage can we expect your transport fares to fall? 10%, 15, 20, 30%? What can we expect?
Ben, for that one, I cannot tell now. The reason why I cannot tell now is that we are not using only the fuel price to do our calculations. We use spare parts, lubricants, and taxes. So when you get to that point, we also go out there to go and check the spare parts, how much percentage that has been reduced from the spare part. Likewise, the lubricant and...
Well, I think I get the thrust of what Samuel Amwa was saying. He is with the GPRTU, and he was basically saying that even if it falls to 15.99, the transport fare decrement will not be immediate. Samuel, you're back. You speak for yourself. Let me not speak for you. Samuel Amwa,
yes,
if you can hear me.
What I'm trying to say is that... yes, I can hear you, Ben. Can you also hear me, Ben?
I can hear you. Go ahead. All right, we'll try to see. If we get him back, we'll do that. Duncan Amwa, so this is where we find ourselves. It's also interesting that the dollar has been losing ground. I mean, not so interesting because the Fed has been lowering its rates, but losing that much ground against the CD. I mean, we've been at 13 and all of a sudden we're around 10 point something. How does that strike you? And secondly, what accounts for the price differentials from fuel pump to fuel pump? So how is it that sometimes you can have such disparities, one fuel pump to another fuel pump? Is it the quality of the fuel we get? What goes into it? Very quickly on that, please.
Well, Benjamin, let me wade into the GPRTU position.
All right, so Duncan, let me just say that you have 2 minutes to speak to these issues.
No problem.
It's up to you.
It is quite unreasonable on the part of, the biggest constituents to us at COPEC to have the kind of argument being advanced that they won't reduce fares and that they would only reduce at 15.99.
Right.
Let me point out, at 15.99, they met with the ministry. They were looking for 30-40% increase. Mm-hmm. They agreed eventually at 19%, where they set their fares. Then we shot up to about 18, and then we went to 20, and diesel went to 23, if you recall.
I do.
They came back to add 20% more. So it's just not been, the 19% increment that we've had to record or recorded. There's another 20% when we shot up to about 23 for diesel. I was on your network and another network defending them on the need to go up on transport fares because the times were hectic. If today diesel is expected to decline from 23 all the way to about 15, which is an 8 Ghana cedi a liter, variant.
Right.
And anybody would want to continue to, play the emotional card that we cannot reduce until we do this, until that. If you also don't reduce transport fares, the cost of goods and services would not come down.
Is the GPRTU, just to sum up on that point, is the GPRTU being selfish, unreasonable?
Completely on this one, I am afraid GPRTU is being insensitive to the struggling Ghanaian who probably patronize them.
All right.
I am afraid that transport operators would have no justification to continue to keep their transport fare rates at where they are.
All right.
We have been the biggest defenders of their, upskill.
Duncan, unfortunately, so we can't do a lot more on that. I would like you to look at the other point, the price differentials. How does it happen? Just to wrap the conversation.
Well, Benjamin, you have a market that will deal with either spot pricing or forward, pricing. If you came to me wanted to buy products, right, There are only two conditions. Are you paying cash or credit? If you have the cash to pay, and I can use that cash today to get, the dollar to transfer to whoever my supplier is, the rate I'm likely to give you could be quite lower as opposed to the same sale that I'm doing on credit, because that will take me some time.
Right.
And then I wouldn't be too sure where the CD's performance would be at the time. So I'm likely to go up a bit just so I don't, get the kind of losses I record. Those who are able to go to the market and pay cash, naturally, they do get a good bargain and are able to transfer these bargains to their consumers at the pump. That's all.
So that's it, basically. If you're getting it on credit, you pay more, and then the price differentials will be rolled over to the customer. If you're paying in cash, you pay less, and of course, the consumer gets to also pay less.
Exactly, Benjamin.
Duncan, always good talking to you. Thank you so much. And we'll look forward to talking to you again when that second window, we hit that second window and we check out the prices.
That should be tomorrow.
That should be tomorrow,
like
actually.
I said,
yeah.
Some have already indicated their pricing, even for second window as of today. We are waiting on the big three, like we'd always call them, to see where they go. But they should do their best to give Ghanaians a Merry Christmas. We've stuck with them. We've had to pay, through the skin of our teeth. If at this point the city is favorable and international market price indexes are also favorable, we want to get a very good Merry Christmas from, the oil marketing company, so that we can also go home breathing, a sigh of relief, Benjamin.
Duncan, we wish you the very best of the day. Thank you so much for your time. Also, of course, he is the Executive Secretary of the Chamber of Oil Producing Companies. Let me get that right. So the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers, I knew I had killed that one, COPEC. And there's also the GPRTU's representative on the conversation, Samuel Amwa, who joined us saying that they are not going to give us a dot unless it hits 15.99, and even that will depend on other factors. Well, that's how we wrap this end of the conversation. We'll take a break, but when we return, it has to do with you and what you think about the conversations we have had so far with our members of parliament, first of all, and now on the CD and, of course, on fuel prices. But before our break, water is life, and I need some now, actually. It regulates your body temperature and keeps you alive and kicking. I go for Awake, which is premium purified water treated through a strict purification process to ensure that every bottle on the market refreshes you better. We have the perfect sizes for all occasions, 330 and 500 ml bottles to fit your pockets and bags. And guess what? 750 ml for the heavy drinkers, 1.5 liters for those who always want more. We have also introduced our special 19-liter jars for offices and homes. Now, all you need to do is stay awake with Awake Purified Drinking Water wherever you go. So come on now, grab a bottle of Awake and get quality hydration. Awake Purified Drinking Water, one for life. Remember, for every bottle you purchase, an amount is donated to the National Cardiothoracic Center. It's produced by Casapreco. If you want to purchase in bulk, just call 0262 351 251. This advert is FDA approved. We'll be right back.